You are listening to the 312 Squadron podcast. My name is Andrew Kouba, and today I'm joined by,
Joel Springle.
Josh Kalmouni.
and we are finally back to talk Bay Area and Middle Earth conquests with our winners, as well as speculates about some exciting new developments from XWA and what it's like to be a part of the playtesting team. So it's been a while since we've really gotten to sit down and do these podcasts. We've had two of the Conquest series come and go, and we had a third one this weekend. And Nick is also out today. He's going to be doing some streaming for the finals of the 312 Team League. So we have a summer that's been packed with X-Wing, and we've been so busy with life and everything else. So it's finally great to get recording again, get in the studio with our champions. So we're going to kick it off starting with the Bay Area Conquest, where Joel was our champion. So just starting off there, how was that tournament for you? You'd been in a number of these Conquest series before.
It was pretty sweet because the first two, I lost one game in each and failed to make the cut for the final in December by by way of losing only one game. Um, the strength of schedule bit me both times. So
Yeah.
this time it was, how about if we just win them all instead?
That seems to be like the way to do it. Yeah. But I remember that. I remember, yeah, you just getting out of the top cut twice.
Yeah, the first time, the very first Conquest event, I was actually number 9. So when you talk just out of the cut, it was literally just out of the cut.
Yeah.
I think the next one I was 10 or 11, because a couple other people with 1 loss squeaked in between me and where I for that matter, I think I might have been the lowest person with 1 loss. So it's like, well, stuff happens.
Yeah, like that can be just kind of some like the rough stuff if you like lose your first game and you're like, well, hopefully this doesn't bite me in the end. Like,
And especially if it's the first game, because if that person doesn't go on to win very much, yeah. If you lose later on, you're losing against somebody who's already won some, and you're likely not to have your strength of schedule suffer too much.
yeah. And then I was gonna say too, with this one, Josh, you were flying in this one as well. Like, how was this tournament overall for you?
Yeah, it was fine. I was paired. This one was a little bit weird with how many 4-0s were possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was in the other match where whoever won that match would have been 4-0. But we were. I was playing with Oscar, and before that we even started, we kind of realized that if the outcome of the other match ended up in two undefeated players, then our game was not going to really matter. And I don't think either of us really. He may have already had an invite to the December event at the time, but I wasn't really worried about that. So once I heard that the outcome of that game was not really important or impactful, I didn't really stress about it. It was a good game. The overall performance with my list was fine. It was adequate. Yeah, we don't need to talk about my list quite yet. It was a slightly different version of my list that I
Okay.
played in the other conquest. Um, so I've been on this archetype for a little bit now, and it's a bit fickle. And this was one of the first, I would say, tournaments that I played with it. Um, so the showing wasn't too bad, but it was just an interesting tournament. Of there were 3 4-0s, and that was a little bit weird.
Yeah, yeah. Like once again, too, same thing with Joel, being one win away, like getting locked out. And this one was a final cut, so it wasn't like we did like the top 8 or top 4 for this tournament either. But yeah, Josh, you ended up ending up top 8. It went out so where it looked like Mulfar, who is playing Republic, was 4-0, but then missed the final table due to the strength of schedule. Because
Actually,
it,
he made the final table. I don't know. I think
oh,
He did.
the
That's who I played.
roll better is a
correct.
little bit weird with how it's displaying it. Yeah.
So okay, so then you ended up playing Mulfar, but yeah, it was just strange how that how that worked out. Okay, so then tell me about that final game, Joel.
Uh, in the final game, he's got a lot of high initiative, some of which can hit pretty decently, and that's the thing that my list worries about because in the process of straining myself, I make my T70s vulnerable. But
Oh
I
yeah,
also end up with a focus and a calculate, so they're really only vulnerable to the first shot, and after that, they're okay. Overall, defensively, if you're willing to spend the tokens, it comes out to 1/8 of one result worse than if you hadn't done the strain. So it's not really that big a deal. It just means the first shot is more likely to connect.
okay, that's yeah. Let's you want to break down your list for the game, because yeah, you were flying resistance in this one.
Yep. Um, Poe and Three Friends is a staple of mine and has been since 23. Um, this time around, I had set aside flying Poe and the Falcon for a moment because somebody else flew Ray with Poe. I think it was 7-point Poe. No, 6-point Poe because they then had two 3-point Y wings against me, and I realized that Poe and Ray together was really potent, but I wanted more firepower from my secondary ships than the two Y wings could give. So I dropped it down to Commander Poe and fiddled with it, and somehow I put Temin in there and went, "Oh, flappy wings. Oh, that hits. Wait a minute." Went back to Poe and the Falcon because he's 7 points, not eight, leaving me 13 points for the T70s, and having three of them, the math shows that using optics with a focus and a calculate is basically on par. It's within a tenth one way or the other, on par of having focus lock, but I get to pick who I shoot in the moment. I don't have to predetermine it.
Yeah,
And with the firepower I'm laying out, it's pretty frequent that the last shot the target is already dead and I'm shooting something else. But now I'm shooting that something else every bit as hard as the other shots were. Um, I developed a real fondness in 1.0 for lists that are horrifically brutal, even if they bleed. That's fine. So long as I'm doing a horrible amount of damage, I'm just going to do more damage than you do to me, and it's going to be okay. That's what this list does, and it does it in spades. Um, and one thing I like about Poe as opposed to Ray in the Falcon, first off, you can put Ray on Poe so
yeah,
that it really evens out his offense. But then the maneuverability. Ray needs to joust, and she dies as a result. Poe does not, and he can get into trouble and pretty frequently get back out of it on the other side. He'll get halved, but actually killing him is really hard. Um, which means his gun is still around, and I can still bully people with him.
yeah,
In the
and you
final, Uh, I was I ran Poe up the left edge along with Temin and Kai, and I had Elo heading out towards the middle. Poe loves big obstacles because I get to ignore them when I fly over them. I get to use them for trick shot. It's a good time. And with Elo, I just leaned into that. If I'm going to have big obstacles, and many of my opponents are going to bring big obstacles, let's do R5X3 and trick shot. Actually, not trick shot. Excuse. No, it is trick shot and Mark Sable, so that
yeah,
I can hopefully, if everything works right, come in behind an obstacle and benefit from trick shot, and then fly over it and Mark Sable you at I5, where I have a good chance of having that strain stick and actually matter.
and you have the
Um,
R5X3, so you can ignore the obstacles, so you're not
right.
taking the damage or anything from them. Yeah,
For
incredible.
that matter, I can park in the middle of it. I spend one charge to ignore it while I'm moving and take my action, spend the other charge to still shoot while I'm sitting on it, and I'm done. I don't get to play that game anymore, but that's often enough.
Hmm.
It's also it's a release valve for the spacing. So if I want all the T70s on the same target and my opponent has done a good job of making the obstacles really annoying for me, Elo just says, "Yeah, whatever," and runs them over. And once that initial annoyance is over, if they're tight and clumped on my side, then they're open on the backside, and he's got room to do his thing after that instead. Um, In this one, I split Elo off towards the middle while everybody else was going up the edge, thinking that I can roll or boost or whatever one way or the other. And I ended up essentially flanking with him and making him a little bit vulnerable. I was a little worried about what was going to come up the middle. But the very first shots, Plo decided that he didn't know what it was to roll and evade, or for that matter, paint. I think my first shot, I just halved him,
Wow.
um, and I put him in a really bad spot. And so Molfar is immediately playing, okay, how do I keep things safe and still manage to use things? And he did a move with Anakin that if he had won road, he'd have rolled in front of Poe and created a situation where he was flanking my I4s and not getting shot. I won road. He couldn't do that. He died. And that was basically game. It was Plo is a hot mess. Anakin's dead. Elo's perfectly fine coming in on the flank to do horrible things to you next turn. And my ships are all pretty darn healthy. So it was the perfect combination of winning road when I needed to, and his greens doing him zero favors. My reds were just doing normal things, but my list is built that if you roll anything from just subpar or better, you're going to max out your results every single roll. And that's what I did. And if your greens don't come to play, you're going to have a bad, bad time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we've all been in games where that's been a deciding factor. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it is still a dice game, but you're trying to put the odds in your favor, which is something that like your list does well. Like I said, having anything akin to a focus lock is going to really take that luck factor a little more, like less in the equation.
One thing that I really like about the optics calculate focus, I don't normally put optics on things with 3 attack dice because it comes up so rarely, because you're always like, "Okay, I gotta focus and a blank. Which one do I spend it on?" It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
With the calculate, you can do both. But also, if you're spending a lock, you don't actually know the result you're getting. You're hoping you get something out of it. With this, when I spend a token, it's for a result. I know exactly what's happening to my dice, and I get to make more informed decisions as a result.
yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that was also thinking back to like some of the previous archetypes when you were looking at that, like that's what made Kylo Ren so popular.
Yes.
Yeah, towards the end of it is it's always going to be paint.
Yep, it's also the perfect knowledge of it. Same thing with Kylo with instinctive aim and optics. You know the token you're spending is getting you a result instead of getting you a chance at a result.
Yeah,
By the time by the time I get around to taking locks, it's because I'm not shooting this turn. I'm confident I don't really care if you shoot me or not because I'm fine, and I'm just investing in the future. If I'm taking locks, basically the game's already over.
yeah. So I would say from like despite the final game, was there any takeaways from this tournament that either of you had, or were there any interesting games or lists that you saw when you were like playing to like this day that we wanted to kind of call out?
Sevwal's list, Ketsu, taking my already strained ships and reducing their agility one, that's an instant way to lose a ship. Fen coming in at I6, if uh especially since it's the SL Fen, if I'm
Yeah.
winning slash losing road at the moment that's inappropriate for me, that spells bad news because I mean he can almost have Poe in one shot. And if anybody else glances at Poe that turn, bam, there's a chunk of points. Also, he's got nothing in the list lower than I4. If you have anything in your list that's I3 or less, I'm just picking what it is I'm going to initiative kill because something is dying and never shooting back at me. I can't do that with his list. I cannot count on two shotting even CAD. With the three agility, no, you don't count on that. Oh, there's two different CADs. CAD Solus might be two shottable, but with three agility, that's really hard. CAD
Hmm.
Bane, there's seven health. There's no way you're two shotting that. Which means I can't count on initiative killing anything, and all those shots are going to come back at me, and that's when I lose a ship on the close. Is when all the shots return.
Yeah, and also too, Sevwal is a Conquest Series champion already. So
Yep.
going into this tournament, yeah, he already had his invite too. So I mean, tough competition any way that you cut it. But yeah, that was a great call out for his scum list. Josh, anything stand out to you about the Bay Area conquest?
My round 3 was against, Andros is what he goes by on Roll Better. He's an excellent player. I played with him before and know him. So that was a very close and interesting game, engaging game. That one stood out to me. Without going into the details of my list, it's really just I'm not worried about too much. I guess I don't joust with any of my lists, and that's something that we can talk about later. But like for like the design philosophy behind my list, but
Yeah.
um, just going back to the comment that Joel made with winning road and such is it's like well that's a situation that I would hate to be in because I don't want to have my whole game plan fumble just because I lost a road roll and now I can't joust you correctly or something like that. Um, from the perspective of the opponent, not from Joel. Uh, and so matchups to me, it's more about how can I adapt to the current player, more so about the current list, and that's something that's very different from 1.0 and even 2.0, um, which I think is a good thing.
No, for sure. I completely agree with that too. I think that's a really good segue. I think we can now like switch from talking about the Bear Area conquest to the one that you won, Josh, and start talking about your lists, the changes you made between the Bay Area conquest, which was back in August. So it's I love that you guys remember so much about it. But into the Middle Earth conquest that you would won, if you want to, yeah, talk about your list, your experience for your championship winning tournament.
Sure. So my list is effectively Imperial Aces. I hadn't played Imperials at all until XWA, and I've been playing this game for on and off for close to a decade now. So this is the first time I ever played the bad guys.
Which
But
is wild because this was also during a meta where Empire was considered to be the weakest at the time.
maybe that's why I was drawn to it.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I don't know, but I can tell you that when Endor Suntir came out in AMG, I was tempted even back then, because he's basically the ultimate A-wing, right?
Oh my god.
I wish they released an Endor Jake that was more of like an AC version of Jake and less supportive. But anyway, Suntir was that. When I started playing him in XWA, it was just fun, and I basically all of the barriers for that existed for me to not want to play Empire just sort of fizzled. And so I paired him with Vader just because he's an obvious choice. He's not my favorite to fly. He's relatively simple, but he's extremely good. He's extremely consistent.
He's just good.
Yeah, and if you lose an ace, you have the other ace to close out games, and I think that's important because Suntir can die from effectively any shot in the game.
Mhm.
Basically, any two dice attack plus can he is just like a 5% chance to just die. Well, two or three dice
Every
attack anyway.
Yeah, every Soontier player knows probably feels like it's more than a 5% chance. Oftentimes, yeah, I fly Soontier like I'm gonna lose him or you're gonna get half points on him anyway.
Yeah, and sometimes
Yeah.
you don't plan for it because the shot is just so unlikely, and then now you have to scramble to make up for those 5 points that you just lost, and I think that's part of the balance for him, right? I think he's extremely good. I think the scoring changes hurt him a little bit with how often he can use his ability. It's twice per game, but with the scoring changes, I think games last a bit longer, so you're more likely to use both charges um, over the course of the game, and I think that's actually interesting and good.
Yeah.
Um, it's healthy because now I have to choose between the evade and just like spamming his ability all the time. So he's extremely fun. Vader is what I would say is just like a necessary I6 for the archetype, and I like to put fire control system, brilliant evasion, and afterburners on him. I know a lot of different. There are quite a few different builds that people like to do, and that's also a sign that it's relatively healthy for his build options. Uh, Personally, I go for afterburners because I think that's the most AC thing you can do on him. It's extremely flexible for both running and pursuing.
Yeah, and I like the brilliant evasion just because the build your own version of Vader. If you're not going with hate, he's going to be force starved. So you don't want
Exactly.
to put yourself, in a situation where you have to spend that resource.
Yep. So fire control system and brilliant evasion effectively just um, m- increases force economy, like per force. It just goes a little bit further. So yeah, those are basically just substitutes for hate. Um, and then Grand Inquisitor was a pretty obvious choice for. I mean, there are quite a few good, what I would consider good Empire choices at four, with that exist within the 4 point band. There's Echo. There's plenty of Reapers that are really strong. Um, a lot of people love the Scimitar Bomber, Scimitar One. I think that double modded proton torps. But again, like this is an ace archetype. So I felt like Grand Inquisitor is just almost a little ridiculous defensively for 4 points. Um, if you bring him for offense, there are better options. But with the force evade plus you just never get range one bonuses against him, that's super strong. So again, he has brilliant evasion to make his force go a little bit further, and ion missiles because ion is really strong. And at I5 against one agility ships, for example, especially if they're small base, I can just shut off your ordnance sometimes, or just control you so that my aces can have an easier time, etc. So
Yeah, especially if you're bringing a four ship list, which we're seeing a lot more of now, but having the force user on there too to get your objectives to keep you protected while you're picking up crates or pushing buttons. I can see that just being a really important piece. Uh,
yeah, yeah, I used to have Karsavi in this archetype before the scoring changes, and before Grand Inquisitor was changed to 4 points. But and then I had Starter Pack Vader. But I felt like it was worth the downgrade from Starter Pack Vader to Custom Vader to get Grand Inquisitor because, as you say, he's basically the objective taker as well as a distracting piece, as well as just a really nice pocket ace. Um, so going back to like I was drawn into Empire through Soontir for better or worse, but I was also drawn into the archetype because I've been playing enough of this game that I just wanted to really, especially with the announcement from AMG, I really wanted to focus on the movement of the game. That's my favorite aspect of this game by far. Rolling dice, maybe I might get some hate for this, but like rolling dice is the most boring part of this game to me. Um, and there's no game on the market that I can think of, at least for tabletop gaming, that has such a cool system of dials and maneuvers and trying to play this cat and mouse game. So this is why I hate jousting personally. I love moving around the board and being flexible. So normally I would play Falcons and A-wings. That was my normal archetype. But moving to Empire, it almost asks the question, well, what if my A-wings can actually do damage to you? Well, while moving around, like really, like just the same way. So yeah, it's been that was my goal philosophy for this list was I wanted to maximize movement and fun and engagement.
yeah,
So normally I wouldn't go with a four ship list because I think five ship lists are they just tend to be safer. The crux of the list, the heart and soul of the list is Death Rain, and I think he is the surprising. Well, I don't know if it surprises me that people don't play him, but I as much, but I would argue he is perhaps the most complex ship I have played in this game. And he is arguably the best ace in this list too. If you define ace as an unpredictable, maneuverable ship,
Yeah.
he has boost barrel roll, medium base with an actually a pretty amazing dial, and he can move twice during the system phase, or at least perform two actions um, just in the system phase, and he gets around. And he's an ace first in this list, but he also fills a role that I think is missing in a lot of Empire lists, which is the control element. I know like the traditional Imperial Aces list would be probably Vader, Soontir, Whisper, and then some sort of coordinator, right? So like
Hmm.
Psy or the Reaper. Um, and these are tried and true archetypes, but I think they struggle, or at least for how I wanted to play the game, they struggle in controlling the battlefield. Like the shuttle will never be unpredictable. I no one's going to ever be surprised by what the shuttle does. At least
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, even if you
Um,
put like trajectory, or I mean, if you put oh God, what's the upgrade that lets you
collision
go over rocks?
detector,
Yeah, if
yeah, like
even if you put collision detector, yeah.
right. And so like Psy can't even do that, but like you can do Coggy or something and try to do something similar. But yeah, it's the dial is just so limiting. It's a good ship, don't get me
Hmm.
wrong, but it just plays in a very different way. The Reaper does this a little bit better. It's a bit more unpredictable and flexible. It can be somewhat of a control piece through, Seventh Sister and jamming. Um, and it can also coordinate occasionally when you need it. But Death Rain leans extremely into the area denial and control. And so the overall philosophy of this list is uh, his role is to shut down major parts of the board so that my aces can effectively surgically dismantle and isolate a piece or several pieces, and then go from there and just like pick apart the any list that I'm fighting against, because I don't really have that much firepower, so I really need to control space, and I find it. I mean, it's very finicky to get started with, because Death Rain. I've lost Death Rain in two shots. I know Joel said Cad Bane doesn't die in two shots. He has two agility, so that's fair. Um,
Hmm.
Death Rain has one agility on nine health. Sometimes he takes a lot of shots, and sometimes he just never takes any shots because he's like arc dodging everything at I4 weirdly. And sometimes he just falls over. So he can die very very fast if you don't make a good call. But his area denial is actually kind of insane.
As much as you don't want to joust, it kind of helps protect against the joust in the same vein. It's
Exactly.
interesting that, yeah, that one of the true aces in your list is at I4 in a field which, like, looking through some of the tournament, a lot of initiatives are I5, and everyone's rolling with one I6 too on such a vulnerable ship. But yeah, it is an interesting list.
So as you're exactly right. Like he is my anti-joust piece. And I think joust heavy lists really struggle against Death Rain because they don't know how to react to effectively something that really actively punishes a block or a formation. And I used to, so in the Bay Area Conquest, I used ion bombs. So I guess I didn't explain his actual build, but
Yeah.
so he gets to perform an action every time he drops or launches a device, and obviously that means that he's going to have trajectory simulator, so that he can launch a device at 5 forward. I throw expert handling on him. I find it very important, but there are other interesting and funny options that you can do, just to improve his action economy is quite high, especially with thermal detonators. So you could throw something like debris gambit or squad leader. They're interesting choices, but I find expert handling to really lean into the ace gameplay, but it also helps him line up further bombing lanes, which is really nice. And as I said, so he's got thermal detonators, so he gets to drop two devices or launch one of them, and perform actions in between each of those drops. And then In the Bay Area, I had ion bombs and delayed fuses. And the concept behind ion bombs is just further control. If you land on if you get ionized, you can't escape my aces, or you can't pursue my aces, or you can't perform scenario objective or like actions. So either way, you're super controlled at that point. I can probably continue to drop bombs on that same area. Um, I've done that to a lot of large base scum lists really have struggled in the past against this list, just because, especially the Ion version, because I can shut down Ketsu. It's very difficult for Ketsu to avoid an Ion bomb because she doesn't have boost or barrel roll.
Yeah.
Um, and so when my 5 pointer is shutting down 10 points, half your list, like now my aces get to just isolate the other aspects of the list and basically kill one thing at a time and be relatively safe while doing that. Um, I still think Ion is good, but I
Yes.
moved for Middle Earth. Uh, there were a few reasons why. So Middle Earth was the first time I even tried Blazers, um, but I wanted to try Blazers because one of the aspects of Death Rain is that was interesting is if he's very good at beating you the first time but not the second time because he's just so awkward to play around the first time. But many good players will learn and say, okay, well, I'm not gonna. What if I just ignore Death Rain, um, which is a very viable strategy,
Hmm.
and just go everything, send everything at the aces to put heavy pressure on them. Um, there's some counterplay to that for my perspective, but it's Blazers go just a bit further. Um, One because they're actually slightly elongated. I don't know if people have looked at the Blazer bomb, but the actual bomb itself is slightly elongated, and then it also drops that obstacle. So I can shut down lanes for multiple turns for each Blaze drop or launch. Um, and whereas with ion bombs, you can pretty much just do moves or reposition through barrel roll or boost to avoid them. So
Hmm.
when he is actively ignored, I find Blazers to be more effective. Um, and when he's actively pursued as well, Blazers just do not only do they deny area in the same way, they also threaten chip damage, which was also pretty relevant in my games throughout the Middle Earth conquest. And when ships get chipped, one they threaten to just give up half points just from the bomb. But two, and I think more importantly, it leaves those ships at like just enough like threshold to be really scared of double I6 shots. um like now your 7 health ship is at 5 health, and like, well, that's pretty likely that my I6s can now just initiative kill you, whereas before, like, without that chip damage, maybe not.
Yeah. Right. Can change the game right there. Also, I mean, boy, if you talk about building a list where your opponent just has no good options on who to attack, because if you're not going after the aces, then the aces are coming after you. If you're not going after Death Rain is also shutting down lanes and really making your life hard on that
and,
too.
and if I'm playing well, sometimes I don't, but if I'm playing well, then my aces are trying to be aces too, right? Like, they're aces
Yeah.
first, they're damage dealers second. So if you put heavy pressure on the aces and I'm savvy of it, I'll do my best to not die with them too. um so in theory, I think it's a very strong list. And in the team league, I went undefeated with it and used both versions. And in this conquest, obviously, I had a good run with it too. It is absolutely capable of losing, and I've won some very close games too. So it's not like those are, it's like a, a, a breeze or a walk in the park. But I think it's the reason why I bring all that up is I think it's a list that has, well, one, it solved what I really wanted, which is it has an extremely high ceiling that I will never meet. And that's super engaging to me. Like, as a player that this late in the game, I would say, I like to be engaged in the movement of the game. And so it's really, if you were to look at the decision tree for Death Rain and many options, it's not outrageous for me to say that he has probably 10 real choices through his decision tree, and all of them can be equally good. Some of them can be equally bad, and they can all dramatically change the way that the game is played. So if we were to go to the final for that um, tournament, I was against a Republic list that had Anakin in the 7B. Let me look it up actually, because I don't
Yeah,
remember fully.
I have it in front of me. Anakin in
Yeah,
the 7B, Wolf with veteran tail gunner, Daredevil Juke Rick, SOC version of Axe, and Broadside.
yeah. So that's honestly, it looks like a pretty solid list. And my strategy for that list was, you go into Death Rain, he's going to bomb you. You go into the aces, they go slow, and Death Rain will cut you off, right? Like these are my plans, right? I'm not trying to say this is what's going to happen in an absolute term. Um, but like my plan is, if they invest heavily into the aces, then Death Rain will readjust and um, intercept. If they go into Death Rain heavily, then he's bombing them and running, and then my aces will flank. This was on salvage, I believe. So I basically just sent Grand Inquisitor at a box. That was my plan anyway, and just have him hold the box. That isn't what actually happened. But the road rolls were interesting that game because he was winning a lot of them. But I also questioned the relevance of them, which, like, I know that there was an I6 overlap, which is super important. But so turn zero, with Death Rain on already being deployed at I4, I don't think Anakin was ever going to be deployed across from Death Rain, right? Like Rick was already there, and I don't see a reason why. Like if he deploys Anakin across from Death Rain, he's just opting into being bombed, and I don't think that was reasonable for him to do that. So I think he was always going to deploy on the other side, which is where I was going to put my aces too. So I don't think road really mattered in the turn zero setup. I think we both were sort of locked into where we were going to place our ships after I4. And turns one and two, we didn't engage each other at all. I went slower with my aces to try and readjust with basically react to what he was going to do. And I think rightfully he chose not to engage with Death Rain. Um, and so I tried to. I wish I could show you, but I had a rock in the center and then a rock just above the center, basically just to create, a lane. And my goal was to shoot a blazer in between those two rocks to sort of shut off that lane, which I was able to do when he used Wolf and Broadside to try to back up his ace, his Anakin and Axe, which I did. But then I saw the way that the game was going. It seemed like he was investing a lot into the aces, but he was engaging with Anakin and Axe before his support was really there. Um, and positionally, both of the boxes that were left were on the opposite side of the board. Um, and so that's when I decided, okay, well, I'm going to actually probably send Death Rain to grab a box, the center box, and turn towards that side of the board so that he can control that whole area with bombs. So if anyone tried to come into that area to pick up a box, he would bomb them. And then 4K, for example, so that he can then threaten, uh, you know, trajectory bombing an escape route for one of my
Yeah.
aces.
Yeah, that was where just having that coverage was just so important in that
Yeah,
area control, yeah.
so it was just like a classic case. I feel of like, well, I guess I'm just going to lean into the objective play, even though the objective play is pretty capped. It just this is part of the ace gameplay of like I don't have the firepower to get through broadside and wolf
Hmm.
reasonably. Um, so I need to hit something and then leave. I got lucky in the sense that he made some mistakes and bumped himself. So that was the turn where I think road really mattered was the turn that he bumped himself. Um, and so I was able to sneak some good damage through. I didn't expect to kill him, and I didn't. He ended up bumping himself again on the next turn. I think on turn 4, and then Anakin died. But the thing is, even if Anakin had survived, he would be on 1 health on 2 agility, so basically threatened by any bomb that I could launch at him, but also any stray shot is also pretty threatening to him. So I really liked the approach and what Blazers could do for me in terms of shutting down a lane and also doing some extra chip damage so that my aces, if they need to, can pounce on something. But really, Death Rain was not in that particular game. Death Rain didn't do a whole lot because he was relegated to area denial for the objectives and basically just holding onto a crate, which shuts off all his fun, right? Like he doesn't get to
Right.
boost or barrel, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's necessary. And of course, Grand Inquisitor is an excellent crate carrier. But if no one's looking at Death Rain or willing to engage Death Rain, of or anybody for that matter, they're going to be good crate carriers too.
Hmm.
Um, so it wasn't really a final that shows off the power of Death Rain, but I guess it shows off the power of aces. If you can't catch them, or if you're not in a position to um, continue to pursue them, which Death Rain, to be fair, was threatening some of the pursuing lanes. Like if Wolf chased Vader down the top board of the edge, the top part of the map, I should say, at least from my perspective, then he would have run into more blazers or at least thermals, and I don't know. It would have been difficult for him to continue to chase him.
Yeah. Well, and that's just, I mean, sometimes even the threat of dropping the bomb can be enough.
Yeah,
And it's there as a piece if you need it in the late game.
it's similar to Reapers,
Yeah.
where the burden is, or even like something like Echo, where the burden is actually more on the opponent than it is on me. They have to consider my moves um, more than I do, in the sense that they may go down this very deep rabbit hole of where they think Death Rain will go, or where they think Reapers will go, for example. And then they tell you like, "Oh, I thought you were going to do this." It's like, "Yeah, that's cool. I didn't even consider that. I'm happy that you had to deal with that and not me."
Right.
But so there's and it's very difficult to quantify the effect of that in a game, right? Because it's like, well, Death Rain's not contributing much in terms of offensive output, but for the mental gymnastics, he's contributing more than any other ship probably. I mean, Soontir probably has a similar effect, but maybe not quite as high. And the thing is, people will avoid bombs, right? Good players will avoid bombs,
Yeah.
but in doing so, they're playing positionally, in a less optimal way. I mean, they're optimal in relation to the bomb,
Mhm.
but if they didn't have to deal with bombs, they could be in much stronger positions. So I think the impact of Death Rain for how I want to play the list is much more valuable to me than a coordinator. Everyone loves, contingency plans, for like having that clutch coordinate when you need it. But I find shutting down the board state is really more impactful for at least these aces. Because it's like 90% of the time Vader doesn't need the action. And Soontir is actually kind of hard to coordinate because he's often stressed in the system phase. And Grand Inquisitor is just kind of a nightmare tank on his own, and he's 4 points. So if you kill him, he's my cheapest ship. So it's like I don't like losing any ship, but if you kill any ship, I'm hoping it's Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah, I mean, it's X-Wing, so you're bound to lose a ship or 2 here or there.
True.
But yeah, so I was first off, thank you both for continuing the X or the Conquest Series trend where we've had a different faction win every conquest. So we started off with Scum won the first one, then CIS, then Rebel, then Republic, and then Joel, you brought Resistance into the winner's circle, and then Josh, which was considered at the time, it got a little bit of a boost, but yeah, then Empire. So FO is now the only faction to have not won a Conquest Series.
Well, now I know what faction I have to run next time.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's that bounty is
That's
out there.
interesting. I didn't know that. That's actually pretty cool.
Isn't that wild? Yeah, like,
Yeah.
it's been the distribution has been, pretty even, which, I think we can use as a good segue to our next topic. XWA, when it first was established, kinda made a big splash at fostering this game that we all, love so much. I love it that it's a community of players and, for players. I feel very fortunate that both of you are members of the playtesting team as well. And I think this could be like a great experience, even just, for me, but for our listeners out there, on what it's like to be a playtester and what are you looking at and considering if you can, just go into that broad detail on that.
What I generally do in lieu of instructions of we're looking at this, we're looking at that, I grab my favorite pet ships and start with them and see, does this feel solid? Or can I just flat out break this? Then it's they'll they'll send things and say, hey, we're looking at this combination. Is this too broken? Um, and there were a couple early on in the process a year ago where uh, things were definitely broken that we tried out early on. There were two times fairly early on where I did a test and my partner and I both put in things that said, please God, no, never let this see the light of day. And I think one of them the next day was changed and the other one took a week.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say, I think I heard legends of the Dengar that possibly was too crazy.
Actually, for me at least, it was Dash.
Oh, sorry, Dash, that's what I meant. Dash, not Dengar.
Because of what was possible, I managed to one shot an interceptor 3 turns in a row.
Yeah,
And we sat down and did the math afterwards and found out that it was roughly a 70% chance that that was going to happen. Not each individual time, total.
yeah,
So it was like 90% chance each individual time. And we were like, this is not right. You
yeah,
cannot let this happen. This is not competitive. Um,
for sure.
and that was not allowed to happen. There's also been things that I want changed that enough other people don't, that they think it's already good enough, they think it's comfortable with it, or they don't think it's broken, that it was just, a perfect firestorm that I ran into or caused. Um, I absolutely have not gotten every Christmas present I've ever asked for, but I've also definitely seen reactions to some of the stuff I've done and that other people have talked about that I know we're being listened to.
Yeah, so then the playtesting team too, I mean, it's a pretty diverse team. Like, how big is it? And then I guess, yeah, what has been Josh, what would be like your experience too, if it matches like Joel?
W Yeah, so it has 12 groups, I believe, and Joel
I'm
and I
pretty
are
sure
both.
that's what I saw too most recently. Yeah.
Yeah, we're both playtest leads, so we both lead our own groups,
Okay.
and each group can have, I don't even know how many players. I don't think there's like a limit or anything, but it's probably 100 players, give or take. Um, and I think this is good, but I also think, I guess I would ask the question of how many global players do we expect to have playing X-Wing? Um, is it 400? Is it 500? Is that too much? Is it 200? I mean, it's probably more than 200. Um, So I would argue that the playtest group is, it's a fraction of the global population, and that's like to be expected. I think we have a good distribution of players in terms of different types of players, and from all over the globe. Uh, but I'm weary of it being a randomized. It's not randomized, but representation of the global community. So
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that everyone is being represented. Um, and this is why I'm actually happy that the points changes are going to be released to the public, because I want public engagement with these points. I want the data to be recorded and analyzed from a public point of view, so that everyone has their voice heard. So like Joel, my experience was basically just testing things that were asked to test. Some of my frustrations have been, well, I don't really know what your design philosophies are, or your balancing, because everyone has their own ideas of what the game should or shouldn't be. But in order to properly evaluate the what's in front of me, the list building, um, to your methodology, I need to know your methodology, and I need to know, the rationale behind it. And I have a lot of conversations with Ollie. He's a great guy, and he's a good friend. But I you know and I'm really happy that I can dissent from him in terms of, opinions most of the time, but still have like a quality conversation with him, and respect each other. Like, this is obviously, we're both adults. This is how it should be.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been working on like a hobby, that
exactly.
I mean
Yeah.
that we're all
And
dedicating
everyone's
time to.
passionate about the game. Everyone has their own ideas. And like, so like, I really do support the XWA,
Yeah.
in that regard. But I don't necessarily see eye to eye with every decision, or um, even with their methodology. But basically, what I want to know, when as a playtester, I want to know what's the framework I'm trying to, tailor everything to, and then I can evaluate under that framework. Um, and I think some of that is
Okay.
there, and some of it may be missing, or maybe I'm missing it. It's not like it's entirely on anyone in particular. Um, the one thing that I'll say though is, I I think any change that results in the net loss of players, at this stage of the game, is the wrong one to make. Um, Even if that change feels better for the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because, and again, this is totally my personal opinion, but the community is so small, and getting new players to stay in the community is, I mean, I don't even know if there's data on that. Like, how many players do we think we're getting? I think on a year to year basis, we're probably losing players on the global scale. Um, I would be shocked to see if that was different, and we're
Yeah.
actually gaining players. I hope so, and I hope that there could be some years where we're actually gaining more players than we lose. Um,
Yeah,
so
this is
I'm
where
just,
like oh, sorry.
no,
I was gonna
you're fine.
say, yeah, this is like the blind spot that that we have with we're not being a corporation. We don't have like the sales data or anything to
Yeah,
look at. Yeah.
and I think you're gonna have a pretty dedicated core, group of, probably several hundred players, or like maybe, 200 players, whatever. Um, that are pretty unwavering, and they'll probably keep playing the game as long as people are around to play with, which
Yeah.
is great. Um, but I think basically, like, now more than ever, the community needs to be unified. And I'm not suggesting XWA is not doing that, but I do think, like, even the scoring changes, like, that was a big deal, and I think not everyone likes it. And some people love it, and I think that
Right.
that's totally fine. And as an individual, I can adapt to, I've been playing the first edition with harpoon missiles and ghost fen and all that. Like, I've been through some
Oh
stuff,
god.
like,
Yeah.
as everyone else has.
Yes.
So it's like we can all adapt. And as an individual, I love this game enough to to do that. I didn't love 2.5 when I first got back into the game and experienced, objectives, and then I've
Yeah.
come to enjoy them as a secondary win condition. And I like the complexity that objectives bring, in the sense that now you have basically effectively two schools of strategy to achieve a win, and you can mix and match those as you see
Yeah.
fit and like tailor them to your play style. And um, the new scoring kind of hinders that a little bit, but that might be that is part of the goal for XWA to really focus in on the dogfighting aspect of the game again.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say
It
personally, I think it was a necessary change. Not to interrupt, but just what you were talking about before we got away from it. When 2.5 came in, I was a huge stan. I mean, nothing like a core rules change really divides the X-Wing community like that. Like, I think that's just
Yeah,
kind of the story of X-Wing is anytime there's been a major change, it's 50% love it, 50% hate it. And yeah, it's hard, to make those calls when you know that something like that, can happen.
agreed. Yeah, so I don't envy them, uh, the XWA. I don't envy their position. I don't wish that I was in charge or anything like that. I think it's a tough. I'm happy to help and offer my input, but it is a tough call, for everyone. The thing that I would just say is I really strongly encourage everyone to engage in those feedback forums, or at the very least talk to members of the XWA, just to make sure that they're not going unheard, as their voice and as a population.
Yeah.
And I want to interject right there. I'm taking notes on things I want to respond to, but this one I think I need to do timely. 100% agree. Get in there in the feedback forums. You don't have to be a play tester to get heard. And if you play 5 games with something to try to get better at it, and every one it gets worse, put the feedback in. You've pointed out that the the playtesters, we're doing what we can, but the community is larger, and in a month they could do more than we do in 6 months. So put your feedback in. You don't have to be a playtester to do that.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's key, especially, one of the biggest complaints when it was ran by like AMG was that they weren't listening to players. Now we have a direct avenue for your voice to be heard, which is that's one of my favorite things about XWA. But okay, yeah, Joel, you said you had some other stuff though.
Couple of things. Yeah, yeah, a couple of things I'd like to react to. With the objective points change, I think to summarize, and Josh, let me know if I'm getting this wrong, but your position was that in changing list building, which any structural change like that will, what it actually did was limit variety. What I feel from my personal standpoint is that it increased my variety because now I don't feel obligated to make sure I have something in there that will take care of objectives. I can do that if I want,
Y-
but I don't have to.
yeah, I think I was being like even less specific about it. I think what I want to maintain is the mixing of two strategies for a win condition. I think that's
Gotcha.
an interesting thing to maintain.
Yes, I
Um,
agree.
I don't inherently lean like I don't think that you should take a 7 ship list and just win by flying forward on the board, spread out, and you just win because you're controlling every objective in the game. Like I don't think that's healthy for the game. That's not increasing
Agreed.
complexity. That's not
Yeah.
increasing engagement. Um, but neither is I just want to joust you and you just want to joust me. Let's both ignore objectives. So like I'm saying the extremes
Right.
are not super helpful for the game. I don't want to go too into like my personal take on whether the scoring is good or like it helps. I would not be playing my list. Actually, that's not true. I think Death Rain helps with the scoring.
Yeah.
Even in the old scoring, Death Rain was super helpful for that. Um,
Also, this is a podcast. This is the medium for your personal, taste.
True. Yeah, it's weird because, like, as a player, I benefit from focusing less on objectives,
Hmm.
because, like, I can play objectives too, but, like, the list that I want to play, it gives me the breathing room to delay my engagement or take my time to surgically approach your list. So I personally benefit probably from the scoring changes more than other people. But I know
Yeah.
excellent players, X-wing players that are disillusioned with the new scoring changes, because they feel like their lists and their play styles are basically neutered.
Yeah.
Um, and and I think like you could argue that like, well, maybe that was too strong of a win condition, and I think that might be a fair argument. But it's also fair to listen to them and like fair to acknowledge that like, wait, their play style was actually like severely hindered here. Um, and I think a careful balance can be struck. I won't mention specifics for the the new scale, but like or the new points.
Yeah.
But the the scoring, like even if you look at it at the current state, right? Like there are some objectives that just seem to not make that much sense to have five of them when you're capped at 2 points per turn.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? So like I think that there can be some tinkering where maybe the scaling like is slightly increased by 1 point, for example, where I can like now the maximum is 3 and the minimum is 0. That
Okay.
way, like positionally, objectives matter a little bit more. Um, but what I've seen in the playtesting chat, or in some of the arguments anyway, was complaining. I don't want to say complaining. Like feedback where they felt that they were giving up position objectively, like for objectives consistently, and that didn't feel good to them, and then they were losing games. And then my counter argument to that is like, well, you're giving up position and you're not killing them. And so like, is it really an issue with objectives, or is it like maybe your approach needs to change to win a game?
For me, you just gave me a minor insight. I'm very much in favor of the current scoring things. I have found that the balance that the design team have said is what they're looking for turns out to be about what's happening in my games. And when they've tweaked it back and forth some, and what they've settled on is the thing that felt best for me. I sometimes lose because of it. I sometimes win because of it, but it's not consistently one or the other. I can't ignore objectives, but I'm also not going to win by doing nothing but objectives. So the extremes you're talking about avoiding, they're being avoided. Where they are in the balance between those, I think for you it's a. I think for me they basically hit the sweet spot, and for you they have not. Um, and I know that we've got players that are on the other side of that thing. So you're right about the one thing you said where you're not going to please everybody. You're just not. Um,
Especially X-wing players.
but the
Yeah,
brainstorm you just gave me was what we've got right now is zero, one, or two. And the way you get two is by having more than your opponent. If you change it to three, that may seem like a small increase, but it's a 50% increase in what you can gain every turn. What if you change it to the best you can do is n plus one, where n represents your opponent? So that if
yeah.
you only have one, you only get one. But if you have three and your opponent has two, you're still getting three. That way, having the five objectives, each one of them individually can still matter. This is a rough draft. I just had the thought, but
I think then no one will invest in more than one, because then they're just sorry. So the minimum also increases. Is that your suggestion? Because what would be my
no,
reason to pick up more than one box in that case?
because
Or
you
that
would then still have more than your opponent does and therefore get an extra point.
I mean, if you're at 18 points, you want the 2, even if your opponent.
true,
Yeah.
but then you're investing, yeah. So the incentivize the incentive then would be to pick up like I don't know. It feels bad, let's just say, for me to pick up 3 crates just so I can score 2. And sometimes it happens, and sometimes it is necessary. Um, I yeah, I mean, it's a fair suggestion. I don't necessarily believe in the 3 points either. I think in the current scale, 3 might be, well, I mean, I don't think it's too bad personally, but I can see, like, I can respect your argument that it could feel too bad.
Yeah.
Um, basically, what I want to go back to though is I feel like the disparity between the minimum and the maximum should be a little bit larger.
Mm.
Um, because I feel as though, at least in playtesting, in the 50 points, so they have a goal, which is 40%, about 40% of your points should come from objectives, and 60% should come from killing.
I
Um,
thought that goal was 70-30.
no, the goal is 60-40. At least that's what the last I've heard from the powers that be. Um, in my play tests, they were closer to 80-20 in favor of killing, and then some 70-30 as well. Um, and it could be just my play style. It could, well, I would argue it's probably not my play style because I did play objectives. But it could just be like, my weird experiences that led to that. But it was over the course of all of my games. I keep my own data, so like my distribution was not 60-40. Um, and I think that the increasing the maximum, or increasing the disparity between the minimum and the maximum, also helps with overall strategy. Um, in the game, where it's not like you can't necessarily run away with objectives. I'm not
Mhm.
suggesting that. I don't think that you should be able to just like score
Well,
5 points and then
that was
just
the
like
problem
win.
bouFore. I mean, I think that
Exactly.
that's what
Yeah.
necessitated it
So they're
because
trying to solve that, and like for better or worse, like that is not going away. And I think like I accept that, and I'm also on board with that, right? Like I think that's also not very engaging when people are just like scoring 5 points every
Yeah,
turn on
when
objectives.
you have 2 force using 3 agility ships grab crates and hide for corners,
Agreed.
and they get
It's
free points every turn, yeah, that's not
agreed. And
yeah,
and
yeah, one harding with a TIE fighter in the corner is not fun. Like,
Yeah, I also
yeah,
agree with that. To me, jousting and being incentivized to joust is not fun either.
yeah,
So again, like I'm trying to advocate for, I want there to, like, I don't want objectives to be incidental as a player, because if they're incidental, then they might as well be removed from the game,
yeah.
in my opinion.
Oh, and I'm
And then
someone
and
who loves objectives too, like, just
I
personally.
yeah,
I wanna hop in here because I have not written down and done a data distribution, but having an 80-20 split would mean 40 points, from kills and 10 points from objectives, and I cannot think of ever having a single game that lopsided.
well, I have.
It's always at least
So
15 points of objectives if we're getting to 50. If we're only getting to 40, there might only be 12 points of objectives, but we are playing very different games somehow, and I don't know how. You and I should probably play sometime and see what's going
yeah, that
on.
would be great. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's one of those things where it's like this is what I want to avoid is not necessarily what is existing now. It's just like
Right.
I'm concerned about it. That's all. I'm not saying
yeah.
like, well, how it is now is not like I'm not vehemently against it. I just I was in favor of, if we're going to talk specifics, because you gave up the points
Oh,
or
I
points.
Yes.
was
But
gonna say, yeah, so this
so
is being recorded, on the 19th, so before any announcements are made, I'm in the dark on on what all this
so
means.
Well,
Yeah.
now you do, and I'll give it away. If I'm fired, I'm fired. But
No, I mean,
just
you don't
because
have to,
I
don't I
feel like
mean,
it's yeah, but I think it's fair for you. Like you can't participate as well. So the scale. I mean, it's no secret that the scale was being suggested to
discussed, for
change.
sure, 100%.
Um,
Yeah.
and so now the scaling is on 50 points.
Oh,
And
cool.
they've changed objectives from 1-2 to 2-4, which means instead of 5 to 10% of your scoring, it's 4 to 8%. So it's going to tone that down, a hair more than where it is now.
For sure.
And so
But
one of my sorry,
I was just gonna finish the sentence with "but a hair." You're fine. I wasn't
yeah,
adding anything new.
it is a hair. But it means that there's some interesting things that way, like, you literally cannot win on objectives with that distribution. I'm not saying you should be able to, or should. I just find that interesting. Like, if
I've
you will
definitely
reach
won
the
games or lost games where I
That's not what
was
I'm
on the
saying,
other
sorry.
side of combat by, like, 6 points, but won objectives by 10 and ended up winning the game.
Right, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying
Okay.
is you cannot win exclusively on objectives. Like, you literally cannot score out because you will reach the 12 turn
Oh,
limit,
fair point. You're absolutely right.
and I think that that's just interesting. Um,
Yeah.
One of the major suggestions that my group has tried to make, and we did test it, was increasing the maximum to 5 points. So scoring is 2 to 5 points. You either get 0, 2, or 5.
And
My
we
per
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, my group found that that was a really nice compromise for having objectives and killing, where killing is still focused. Personally, I was getting closer to the 60-40 distribution, that was the target goal of the XWA. Um, and my group overall enjoyed it more. Of course, my group is only one of 12, so it wasn't as well received across all groups. Um,
For my group, along your lines, we had when we spent a couple weeks on 2.5, we had of our 8 to 10 people, one person who liked it, uh, 2 or 3 people who were like, "Whatever, it's fine," and everybody else was like, "No, man, that's just too much." So our group is on the other side of that.
Yep. And I'm just curious, like, why is that too much? How is the 1 point? So, because 1 point difference in 50-point scale is much less than 1 point in the 20-point scale. So,
It's
is it
less
just a
the
feels bad?
point and more the ratio of the points. Uh,
Yeah. So,
Giving up
and I
5 to 0 or even 5 to 2, the ratio involved is significantly different, and, there were multiple games we looked at where the person who won would have lost under 2-4. Of course, it has to be a tight game for that to be true. Either way, it has to be a tight game. Um, I think my group is probably just a little more bloodthirsty, although that can't be true because we're scoring so many objective points. I don't know.
I think, I mean, I think it's
I
an
don't know.
interesting discussion.
Yeah.
But again, like, again, for my own philosophy, which is, I want to increase or maintain the complexity and the engagement of the game by having objectives not be incidental. Whereas I felt that they were more incidental on 2-4. Um, but even meeting their goals of 60-40 distribution, personally, that's how I met their goals, by being able to score that extra point in across the game multiple turns. I was able to increase my objectives percentage by enough to be, closer to 35%, for example, and sometimes, rarely, but sometimes 40%. Um, and I just to me, if you are consistently giving up 5 points a turn, um, what are you doing? Is the question that I have. And like, it could be a fair answer. Like, I'm not trying to poke fun at anybody. Like, but like, if your goal is to only dogfight in this game, and you're consistently giving up 5 points, like, you can't control one objective, then I feel like you don't want objectives in the game at all. Is that like a fair thing to say?
The thing is that my group is having I have 2 issues with your entire argument. One is, and I'm trying to look it up now and not finding it. I would swear that what they said was it's currently either 50-50 or 60-40, and they're trying to move it to 2/3 and 1/3, not even 70-30, but 2/3 and 1/3. So the basic premise of your argument, I think, is counter to everything that I've been doing for the last year. Second, my group is meeting your goal. So that brings up the question, what are you doing with objectives, because we're doing it. We're getting there. So
Well, my
it's
goal.
entirely weird to me. The experience you're having is very much not the experience I'm having.
Well, okay, it's not my goal to meet 60-40. It's the XWA's goal. That's my claim anyway. It's not.
Right. And my claim is that it was 70-30, which we are meeting 70-30. We're not meeting 60-40. We do and we don't. We don't consistently meet
So it
60-40.
would be interesting to see how that translates into the public space, and also it would be good to see the data from other groups.
It really
Yeah.
would. It absolutely would be good because they've got it in there somewhere because they'll tell us about it every now and then. It would be excellent to see that.
Right. I mean, this kind of points back to Josh what you were talking about earlier, which was the need for diversity on like the playtesting team in terms of groups, play styles around the globe, like globally. And honestly, like this conversation just feels like maybe yeah, you were onto something that is something that like could be missing. Were there any other feedbacks from other play groups that that you've experienced the similar? I mean, I'm sure that your internal group chat's got to be lighting up and far more contentious than even just this short conversation
It frequently is, yes.
for sure. I mean, like everyone's got deep held beliefs, and I'm sure everyone's also bringing their own play styles, their own heuristics, like to the game as well. Because when you're talking to like just thinking about this past season, all of my play through the leagues and the chats that I'm having with just even like my teammates, like my findings between each point change has had completely different heuristics even. Granted, it's on an older scale, but yeah.
And I want to point out here for a moment that while it's obvious, Josh and I not only have different play styles, but kind of different expectations of what the philosophy is and stuff.
Right.
We're both getting pretty similar, pretty high level results right now.
Yeah.
So it's not like either one of us is wrong or either one of us is right.
Right, for sure.
Where I think we're showing that there definitely is some variety, but it would be nice to know, how much variety is there and where is it? Maybe the XWA needs to do an internal survey of what do you see, what do you want, what is your style, so that they can see for themselves what variety they've got, and then they can also publish that out and go, this is what we have. We are missing this particular play style. We want more playtesters who do this so that we can get more of that data. I think that would be a really excellent idea, and I never would have had that idea without Josh's discussion points earlier. So thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, and just going back to well, so I think this, yeah, it highlights. So first of all, Joel, I'll send you screen caps that I'm taking of
Please do, because
their
I'm
target
not finding
goal.
the stuff. Yep.
Yeah, it's mentioned a few times, but it's lost in a lot of discussions, and I think that this kind of goes back to my very early on point with of I need to know the metrics, I need to know the goals, so of the XWA of the balance team, so that I can properly evaluate the game to those goals and objectives. Because
And
if
I actually have something I want to interject there too, which is this is going to sound really weird to you, but I kind of, to a certain degree at least, I kind of don't want to know, because if I do know, I'm going to tailor what I'm doing to try to make that happen, even if it's only subconsciously. Whereas if I don't know, I'm just going to do what I think I need to do to win the game within the structure they've currently given me, and give them data that has nothing to do with their expectations and
Mm.
everything to do with me just trying to win the game.
well,
I absolutely see your point of view.
you're tasked,
I
you
Go
are
ahead.
tasked to evaluate as well as play a game. And I don't think you can evaluate without criteria. And if you're working on your own criteria and that's not explicitly stated, then how can they evaluate your data?
My criteria is I'm trying to win the game.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I mean, like,
I'm just
yeah.
I'm falling quiet because I'm just trying to absorb, and I'm percolating is what I'm doing. So go ahead.
No, it's fine. I just think that, there's multiple roles for playtester, and it depends on what you are playtesting and like the purpose of you playtesting is. And I think, there are many examples of video games, for example, where playtesters they exist only to run into walls for 20 hours and see if they fall through the map, and that kind of thing. And that's not what my interpretation of a playtester is for this XWA group. It's not to simply provide data for games and try to win, but it's also, they ask explicitly for what felt good, what were the test results, what felt not so good. Um, are things balanced? If they ask you the question of is this okay, then inherently you are tasked to evaluate something, and it's not just to win a game. It's to answer the question. But if I'm evaluating something, and you're evaluating something, and we don't share the criteria with each other on how we're evaluating it, um, that's just doomed to
Then yeah,
fail.
some of those questions of, "Is this okay?" If I'm approaching it from a different perspective than you, then we can have different answers and both be right,
Correct,
and
which
that
is
doesn't
why
actually
I
help
want to
them.
know
Okay.
the goals of XWA so that I can tailor my evaluation. Is this meeting their goal rather than do I think this is okay? And I
Yeah.
can say, yes, this is okay in meeting your goal. Personally, I may have a problem with it, or maybe I love it. And I think like it's totally fair to have two different sets of evaluations, but and basically allow them to make that call of saying like, well, this playtester really liked what we did, but maybe it's not meeting our goal, or the opposite. Like, yes, it's meeting our goal, but the playtester didn't really have a good time with it. And I think that that's usable data. That's beneficial to both playtesters and the balance team, in my
Uh,
opinion.
in part because this is the internet and this is a rarity on the internet, I am going to take a moment here and mark that in my mind, Josh, you have officially won me over and won this argument that I cannot provide you and I cannot both provide data that is consistent and useful to the organization if we do not both understand the criteria in at least a pretty darn similar way. And to do that, we need to know what it is. So, well done.
Well,
Yeah.
well, thanks for the
Very well
discussion, and
done.
thanks for being open-minded. And but I think we both highlight that, like, perhaps, just the discussion of 60-40%, right?
For
Like, and
sure.
that's something that I will happily discuss with you further, and send some screenshots and all that. Um, but just not knowing those goals, or not having those goals be abundantly clear to us, is already something that we should probably change.
The simple fact that I thought the goal was different than you thought it meant, I'm going to say something here. Obviously, this means that it's possible to misinterpret them. I want to point out I have ADHD. My memory
Me too.
is like an interesting Swiss cheese where sometimes it's really thick and dense, and every tiny detail you can possibly think of is there at my fingertips. And sometimes I will do stuff like forget that I was ever on blood pressure medication and almost give myself a stroke after missing my meds for 4 straight months.
Oof. Yeah, so I say
Uh,
it's like at times it can be like an etch a sketch, a brain where you can be hyper focused on one thing, but you switch over and just it shakes it. Like,
yep.
yeah.
For the audience listening at home, um, it's entirely possible that they've been crystal clear about this, and my memory is just flat wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, and that can just be just within working like a large organization. It's going to be interesting to see, how that kind of stuff shakes out into the decision making process. But
It's also entirely possible that there was a comment in passing sometime early on when they were talking about, "Do we want this or do we want that?" And this stuck in my head, and that is what they actually went with.
I was going to say, or what if they just gave different teams different objectives?
They might have. That'd
It.
be interesting.
I mean, it sounds like,
I
I
don't think
mean,
they
that
did,
no, but it
but
could. I mean, we don't know. I mean, I don't know,
you're right. We wouldn't know.
but I would say that I mean, it just seems like yeah, like two things. Like we'll need like a bigger diversity of player base, and it does seem like there might be just an issue with like transparency from the lead designers now,
Yeah, and being positive for once,
or
for
if they know.
for
Yeah,
me, I am excited to have this be public, because I think, as Joel said, the public can do more good, with these points, and providing good data, than we could possibly do, over such a fraction of the time. And I think if it's properly evaluated, how do I want to say this? Properly evaluated and carefully evaluated, then I think that they can really have excellent data to, um, tailor what they need to meet their goals. But I hope. Sorry, I know you want to say something, but I really just hope that one of their goals, their main goals, is to maintain player base, and maintain a unified player base. The last thing I think that anybody wants is to have another split where there's like another legacy group, and now X-Wing is further divided into three or more different groups.
Um, so I've got three things to toss in. One goes all the way back to 1.0 with the Jump Master. I don't know if you remember, but when they teased the article, they released enough that it became possible to play it on Vassal. Easily a month before it was physically released on the shelf, we already knew that three of them, with whatever upgrade it was that let you fire the torpedo that they could carry without having to have the lock, meant that three of them with proton torpedoes won basically every single match, except when there was horrible dice discrepancy against them. We knew this a month before it hit the shelf because there were enough people screwing around with it enough that the public could find it when the playtesters had not somehow. And the second thing that ties into is to one of your points about using that data, is that FFG, in part because they had to run everything by Disney and that slowed everything down, it took them 6 months to do the first fix, which wasn't enough, another 6 months to do the second fix, which stopped the three of them being a thing, but just resulted in Dengaroo, which took another 6 months to fix, by which time 2.0 was just about to happen. Whereas XWA isn't tied to any of that and can and has made changes as needed pretty quickly. I know one of the things they're looking at is on these points release, if something turns out to be an immediate and huge problem, that they will make quick fixes. Hopefully, they don't have to, because we've tested everything under the sun as much as we could and gotten it close enough that you're looking at a point here and a point there and not 3 points or an entire slot or something. But we all know it's entirely possible for something like that to slip through. Um, and then I want to point out, you talked about you need your changes to not result in losing the player base. Agreed. I will say that any change can lose a player.
Yeah.
Um, and if you don't have any change, that can lose players. So what they really need to do is make sure that what they're doing is as appealing to as many people as possible. And if you saw the recent survey that had 600 plus respondents, which I think means we have at least 600 players, um, it came out, the results of that survey were so much better than any survey ever done while AMG or FFG were under control of things. The average on a 1 to 5, where 5 is fantastic and 1 is terrible, the average score for any of the metrics was like between 3.8 and 4.1, which was wonderful to see. There were some ones in absolutely every category, but there were a whole lot more 5s and 4s and 3s than there were 1s and 2s. So far, their changes have been pretty well received.
I would
Hopefully, the
agree.
50 points will be. Um, One of the big sticking points on the 20 point was granularity. I have a completely different thing. I don't want the upgrades I put on a ship to be tied to the points of the ship, but having play tested this, I don't think you can properly express how much easier it is to create a game balance when you don't have to worry about that one upgrade going with this one upgrade on that particular pilot.
Yes.
When you can go, okay, that takes 13 points, that pilot gets 12. Boom, we're done. And now you can't break the game with that pilot. Um, and as much as I want the total freedom and I want to be able to fly really, really lean ships, and focus just on the fundamental of the games and not worry about comboing at all, the workload involved, we'd have to have 10 times as many playtesters as we do to come up with a product that approaches the quality of what we've already got.
Hmm.
So my biggest gripe in the game is one that I have reluctantly set aside as a necessary thing. Also, in South Bend, where the Michiana Marauders went from not existing to being a playtester group and a group that's about 15 strong total in the last year and a half, um, a lot of those players, anytime anybody looks at Legacy or considers it, they get deer in the headlights. They're like, I don't know what I should be putting on this ship because it's freeform. It had never occurred to me that that was actually beneficial for new players until new players that I knew and respected and loved said to me point blank, "Oh, this helps. This makes the game more approachable for me." Like, if it's gonna bring more players in, so I have more people to play against and the game lasts longer and we're more likely to continue to have large events and be able to hold worlds and all these other things, then okay, I will take this thing that I see as an imperfection in the game and I will embrace it and run with it because it's better for the overall health, even if it's not what I want.
Yeah.
I have 2 other rules things that I want fixed that are actually pretty bloody minor. I'm not even gonna bother to say them out loud because whatever, I'm living with it the way it is now, and I'll deal with it. No game has ever been perfect in the history of the universe. This one isn't either, but I
Yeah.
love it.
There's
So
gonna
I'm
be
rolling with it.
another update after this one. So yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
and
exactly.
Yep.
I think it's important to note that, like, the it is an exciting change, um, to increase the granularity of the game.
Yep.
Um, I I think obviously the main goal, for this initial release, as a playtester, is, probably to find the things that are the most broken and sort of eliminate them from being, uh, available. Um, and as you said, we probably didn't catch everything, but I find that's an okay thing, right? Like, this is
Yeah,
acceptable. If the
Yeah.
public finds it and then there's an emergency nerf, everyone should be okay with that, like, because
for
we're
sure.
actively
Yep.
improving the game together. Um,
Yes.
and on that note, again, personally, I feel like the 50-point system has a long way to go with how good it can be. I don't I, like There are many ships and chassis that I see that maybe aren't as granular as they could be. And you're absolutely right. Perfect balance is not obtainable, but I'm excited to see how it changed. 3 points patches down the road. How will 50-point scale look? And I
Yeah.
like that is exciting to me. It's not really a criticism. I just think, like, this should be the worst version of 50 points.
You're
And I
absolutely
think,
right. This should be
yeah.
the worst it will ever be. That's I hadn't had that conscious thought. Thank you. Continue, sorry.
No, no, you're fine. You're welcome. So, like, and that to me is also exciting, but it's also, it's something that I've thought about, like, during playtesting, where I'm kind of just like, bored is not the right word, but it's just like I'm kind of stuck with the list building, at the moment, and I'm excited to see what others do
Yeah,
outside of the playtest group. Um, if that 600 response, you can maybe add another 100. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
throwing numbers out there to assume, like, this is the 700 players in X-Wing, um, with 100 playtesters. That's 1/7. It's not bad, but, like, that's only 1/7. So I'm super excited to see where we go from here, um, and to see how the granularity does improve even further, because there are some limitations for now that I see. But there's also, I hear that they're going to release new upgrades and new,
I hope so.
yeah, new cards that, I'm not aware of. And so they're
Right.
planning that out before, anyone knows anything about it. So, um, the
Long-term
support of the
health of the
game,
game, they need new content eventually. So, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
agreed.
and the
Yeah,
SL cards were such a huge hit. Like, I think that they're going to be safe in going that direction. Yeah,
yeah. As long as
I also want
everyone
to talk.
is acknowledging, like, this is a group effort. Like, don't expect the 50-point scale to be perfect when it releases. It's like, this is, um everyone's,
yeah.
not responsibility, but, like, this is a group effort, to,
Exactly,
to
and
put
well,
it
and
that
the
way.
thing
Yeah,
is, like, I mean, from everything that I've learned from game design is you will always be surprised when it gets released to the greater public because
yeah,
you just have so many more people trying to break it.
Um, yes. Specifically going back to what you mentioned with, roughly 100 play testers, 600 respondents. If we take those as the absolute numbers, in 1 month, the public can do what we did in 6 months,
Mhm.
assuming they play all of their games at the rate that we played only our playtester games, because keep in mind, our playtester games are on top of whatever we play normally. There's a
Yeah.
good bet that the public as a whole averages at least that rate. So in 1 month, they'll do the work we did in 6. We should. I'd be stunned if in 1 month there weren't some changes because some mad genius concocted something and 6 copycats had real similar level results, and we all went, "Oh, that's a problem." And if that doesn't happen at least once, then this is not the X-Wing public that I know.
Yeah.
Um, and regarding balance, um, there was a discussion at some point a long time ago that for FFG and for AMG, they were never intending to get a perfectly balanced game. They always want the new release to be better so that it will sell. And then 4 months down the road, when the next new release comes out, they can price it normally while the next new thing becomes the hotness.
Right.
That does a couple things. One, it sells product for them, but two, it keeps the game fresh and interesting. From our perspective, we don't have to worry about game balance, so we don't have to break anything to make it better, like the SOC arcs were when they first hit the market.
Right.
Um, on the other hand, we also, in order to keep things fresh, honestly, we don't want things ever to be as good as the SOC arcs or as bad as the stuff in the Rebel starter kit.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
what we do want is from perfectly balanced, we want some things that are a little better and some things that are a little worse that change when the points iterations change, because that will change the meta and that will make the game feel a little more fresh, a little more new, and keep people experimenting and trying different things. At least that's what I think is going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that was what why I was always so hopeful when XWA is taking over. I was happy to see AMG go, just because the priorities for AMG is to sell units and to offload or take it be valuable enough to be sold as a company versus XWA is by the players for the players. It's based on making the best version of a game that you can.
Yeah.
Uh, this has been just an absolutely incredible conversation, especially from my perspective. I know we're teasing something. This is going to come out after the announcement, the XWA stage, and we'll have a link to that in this show episode. But I think this might be a great point to wrap this up. Does anybody have any closing remarks? And once again, congratulations to both of our Conquest champions.
I'm just really glad that the game is continuing, the community's continuing. What I've seen so far in reactions, even from people who aren't fond of whatever the XWA might be doing in a particular detail, has so far had a fair amount of grace applied to it. The reaction has been something akin to, I'm not really fond of this, but I'm still playing the game. I'm glad these people are still doing the work. I'll see how it goes in the future with the next set of changes.
Yeah.
I think that's a great attitude to have because none of us are ever going to love everything. Um, Also, it's been, I think we might have learned, I know I personally learned deeply about reactions when changes come down the pike. Because my reaction to the 2.5 announcements was famously, let's just say suboptimal, and not something I was proud of. I'm really happy with the way I've seen people manage to disagree with XWA without being disagreeable about it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I agree. I think at the end of the day, XWA is doing very good for the game, and as you've mentioned previously, like this is out of passion and love for the hobby that we enjoy. So that is also just coming from a good space already, rather than um, a company that was given this IP, and we don't need to go into conspiracies about how they handled it or whatever, but
For
like,
sure.
Right.
it was a product first.
Mhm.
Whereas this is that we're all volunteers, to continue on with this game, and I think that that alone, um, is really helpful for even if I disagree with some changes or not. Like everyone wants to play the game, everyone loves the game, and so I think it's in good hands overall. But anyways, my last closing state is just thanks for having us and thanks for the conversation. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you very much for having us on.
Yeah, I mean, and you both are definitely welcome back. This was such an amazing insight for me just into understanding just from the leads of two playtest teams, like what considerations are being made, what they're thinking about. I think it's going to be. I think our listeners are going to absolutely love this conversation, and I mean, it's inspired me to get more involved and start turning in more of those feedback form sheets too. So, yeah, thank you. Seriously, once again, this has been absolutely incredible. And also, thank you to everyone for listening to this episode and continuing to support us here at 312. So, be on the lookout for a couple of events in November from us, including the coverage of the San Francisco System Open November 8th and 9th, as well as the Alamo Conquest, the final qualifier for our Conquest Series on November 15th. And if you aren't already following us on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, you should. We have links in the description. And then finally, 312 is excited to be producing exclusive alt art cards of featured new XWA pilots for their patrons. Consider supporting us on Patreon and get rewarded with some awesome quarterly swag. Closing out, I'm Andrew Kouba.
I'm Josh Kalmouni.
I'm Joel Springle.
And we're signing off. Thanks so much.
Cheers.